What's going on, guys? It's Gino from Modern Accessory Review, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the newest iPad in the market right now, which is the iPad Air 4. After spending a little over a week with this thing and testing out all of the different features like the Touch ID and the power button and the new processor with that A14 Bionic chip, I have really enjoyed using it so far. Now, the cool thing with the iPad Air is that it actually comes in 5 different colors, including space gray, rose gold, sky blue, green, and of course silver, which I have right here. All of the colors look super good, and of course they have that clean Apple aesthetic. For myself, I was actually having a hard time going between the sky blue or the silver color, but to be honest, any color will look good. And looking at the exterior of the Air, it's really similar to the iPad Pro with that thin boxy design, and we only have just slightly larger bezels on the front by the screen, and on the back we only have one camera, whereas the iPad Pro has 2 cameras plus that LiDAR scanner. And the one camera on the back here is a 12 megapixel wide camera with 4K video recording, so it's more than enough for most people. And on the front we have a 7 megapixel 1080p HD camera that you can use for FaceTime. And to be honest, it's not the greatest, but it does get the job done. And I actually took this picture with the 12 megapixel camera on the back of the iPad Air, and as you can tell, the quality is really good. And I think most people, including myself, will hardly ever use their tablet or iPad to take pictures anyways, because they have their phone or an actual camera. Now, the iPad Air does start at $599, which is much more affordable than the iPad Pro, and thanks to that new A14 Bionic chip, which is the new processor, it actually allows the Air to be a little bit quicker than the Pro at certain things when looking at the specs. Now, the downside with the iPad Air is that we only get 64 gigabytes, and if you want to upgrade, you will have to go all the way up to 256 gigabytes, which will cost you $749 because Apple didn't give us a 120 gigabyte option. And I do think most people could get away with 64 gigabytes unless they're doing a ton of Photoshop stuff. And of course, there is always an option to upgrade your iCloud if that 64 gigabytes does get full. And looking at the screen here, we do have a 10.9-inch liquid retina display, whereas on the iPad Pro it's 11 inches because the bezels are just slightly smaller. And the iPad Air is only available in this size, which I think is the preferred size for most people, but if you do want to upgrade, there is a 12.9-inch option on the iPad Pro. I do think that the iPad Air will give you the most for your money, but if you want a ton of space for Photoshop and all of that kind of stuff, the iPad Pro does give you an option to upgrade it up to a terabyte, which is insane. And a little more on what really separates the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro does have a little bit stronger GPU and a higher refresh rate at 120 Hz, and the refresh rate on the iPad Air is 60 Hz. And if you're not familiar with the refresh rate, all it really does is determines how fast you can switch between different pages and apps. But 60 Hz is definitely more than enough for most people, so don't let the refresh rate stray you away from the Air. And taking a look at the buttons, we do have the volume rockers on the side with the power button on the top. And the really unique thing about the power button is that there's actually Touch ID built into it, which works super well. I actually prefer this Touch ID over Face ID because right as I press the power button, it automatically scans my finger and brings me into my home screen. And we have USB-C charging, as you can tell right here, and thankfully Apple actually included a power brick inside of the box with the iPad Air. And next to the USB-C port, you can see both of the speakers on the bottom here and on the top. Plus, I do want to mention that we have the Smart Connector, which is the 3 dots down here, that allows us to use Apple's newest accessories like the Smart Folio, and we can also use the new Magic Keyboard and Apple Pencil. So final thoughts here, I have absolutely loved the iPad Air so far. It handles everything extremely well, and I think it's a great device for anyone with a budget of $599. Not only are we getting that new processor, but also the Touch ID and the power button, and that new modern design like the iPad Pro. Plus, this can be used as a laptop for most people if you get the keyboard attachments. So what do you guys think about the iPad Air 4? Definitely let me know in the comments below, and I will try my best to get back to you. But with all of that being said, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!